Hello and welcome to Viewpoint on a day when an RTI query has revealed how at this time of a national emergency that the COVID pandemic has become, the government of Karnataka has unused funds to the tune of 267 crore rupees, which has been collected, by the way, from ordinary citizens to help this fight against COVID-19. Why is that money lying unused, especially since the same Karnataka government had refused to send trains for migrants, saying it had no money to pay to send migrants back home, and this was just a few weeks ago, only to backtrack on that decision. So what's going on in Karnataka? We'll find out on the show tonight. S. Prakash is spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. He'll be joining us, and so is Aishwarya Mahadev, spokesperson of the Congress Party, both of them up first on Viewpoint. Also on the show, I'll be joined by Denna Grayson. She's a viral pandemics expert. She will also be telling us about the ongoing situation in the United States, which is the country with the highest number of infections. But first, what's going on in Karnataka? Amidst the ongoing crisis across the country because of coronavirus, an RTI query has now revealed that the Karnataka government has collected something like 267 crores in the Chief Minister's COVID Relief Fund, and that is in a space of 2 months. But as the cases in the state now cross the 6,000 mark, with a huge blow to the state economy, not a single rupee has been utilized from that fund. Our Revati Rajivan finds out why.
₹267 crore, 72 lakh, 37,574 rupees. That's how much money has been paid into the Karnataka Chief Minister's COVID-19 Relief Fund between March 23 and May 19, in less than 2 months. But an RTI reply finds that not a single rupee from this fund has been used on COVID care. Instead, it has been set aside as an emergency fund.
From the treasury, incentives, infrastructure, whatever, even management, so far a lot of money has been spent already. This money is a long way, since the virus is going to stay for a long period, and the scope for utilization, there's a long way to utilize this fund, and we are not in a hurry. Anyhow, things have been addressed and taken care.
In May, Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa announced a relief package of close to 1,800 crore rupees to farmers, vegetable growers, vendors, auto and taxi drivers. Just 40 crore of that amount has been disbursed.
ಎಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಇವಾಗೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕದು. ಎಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಅಂತ ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ಸಲಿ ಏನು ಬರಲ್ಲ, ಇವಾಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ವಾ. ಇವಾಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಬಾಡಿಗೆಗೆ ಡೈಲಿ ಖರ್ಚಿಗೆ மெடிக்கல் அது இது என்ன ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ.
நாங்களாம் இப்படி ஃபுட்பால்த்து மேலே நிச்சுன்னு நாங்களாம் இப்படி வியாபாரம் பண்ணி இப்படி கஷ்டப்பட்டு சோறு தண்ணி இல்லாமல் கஷ்டப்படுறோம். ஃபுட்பால்த்து மேலே வியாபாரம் பண்ணால் விட மாட்டேங்கிறீங்க. இப்போ சர்க்கார் என்ன பண்ணுறீங்க? இப்போ தான் முக்கியமாக எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் நடவடிக்கை எடுத்து கவர்மெண்ட் ஒரு உதவி செய்யணும்.
What is emergency? More than this COVID, what is you are expecting? So people have contributed, people are generously donated for the purpose of the COVID.
Assuming that the pandemic isn't going to go away anytime soon, this emergency fund could be useful in the long run. But for those who have lost their lives and livelihoods, long run does not mean much. Donations to the fund have been pouring in from individuals, boards and corporations, even as COVID cases in the state have crossed the 6,000 mark. Almost all sectors in the state have suffered losses due to the lockdown, and many industries are even shutting down. It's still not clear whether the CM's fund is to be used to build health infrastructure or help the below poverty line families a counter living. With video journalist Sudhakar, Revati Rajivan in Bengaluru.
All right, so why is this money lying unutilized if it's been collected under the Chief Minister's COVID Relief Fund? Joining us now is S. Prakash. He's the spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and Aishwarya Mahadev, spokesperson of the Congress Party. Mr. Prakash, 267 crores is not a small amount of money, but it's lying completely unutilized. Not one penny has been utilized out of this money. Why?
No, first of all, I thank all the donors who have generously contributed towards the CM Relief Fund upon his appeal. Secondly, the COVID-19 fight does not over tomorrow. It's a long drawn battle against the virus, and we have not, it is just started against the fight against the COVID virus, and state government has already spent thousands of crore rupees compensating several segments. For example, 1,600 crore rupees worth of special package was announced for various sections of the society. Subsequently, 200 crore rupees was spent for upgrading the health facilities in the state. They ramped up the facilities, buying ventilators, sanitizers, PPE
Sir,
kits.
sir,
so
the
on and
number
so
of
forth.
cases, Mr.
And
Prakash,
all of
number of
them
cases
have
has
been
just
taken care
gone
of.
past
350
6,000.
crores
No,
have-
one second, Mr. Prakash. Number of cases has gone past 6,000. You and I can see how the number of cases is going up on every single day basis. Most importantly, the Karnataka government just last month had said you are not going to pay money to migrants to ferry them to their homes because you want to keep them back because the builders want them back. This same government is sitting on 267 crore rupees unutilized. If you're not going to spend it now, when are you going to spend it? There's no point saving for a rainy day. Today is the rainy day.
Sir, as I said, the Karnataka has 3,000 cases, active cases. It is not 6,000. Secondly, the government has paid KSRTC for ferrying the laborer from state to from other district to their native places about 350 crores of rupees. And also, Chief Minister generously announced all the expenses of the migrant labor who are living by train will be
Sir,
borne by the
the
state
ones who
government
are leaving
and
by
and he is
train,
doing it.
the Chief Minister had
100
refused to
more-
send them after 2 days after the High Court intervened. And you know this, these are facts. It's not stuff that I'm making up. After the High Court intervened, you had to backtrack on that decision.
Zaka,
Be that
let
as
me-
it
let me
may.
complete,
No,
let
be
me
that as it
complete.
may. Be that as it may. Let me
I
bring in
am
Aishwarya.
not- I am
Let me
not
get
denying-
in Aishwarya Mahadev. Point is this, that the people who have contributed to the Chief Minister's COVID relief fund have contributed for COVID. They have not contributed for some rain that's going to come or for some earthquake that's going to come 6 months down the line. They have contributed for something that needs to be dealt with here and now. Does the government's justification that we are saving for a rainy day, that the battle against COVID has just begun, that there is a long road ahead, does that cut ice with you?
Absolutely not, Zaka. Before I answer what you said, Mr. Prakash said, we gave 1,600 crore package and whatnot. And your journalist, Revati herself, pointed out that only 40 crores out of the 1,610 crore package has even been dispersed. They've also spoken about so many crores for auto drivers and migrant workers, and all of which you haven't even seen thousands of beneficiaries coming out. I think all of this is eyewash. But Zaka, at the end of the day, on March 25th, when the CM went out and made this appeal, he very specifically said, this is for COVID relief. This is for COVID measures.
Yes.
Right? You have to admit, I will also give you another fact, Zaka. The money that they're using is not from the fund, obviously, as we've known. They were using money from the Labour Department's Labour Welfare Fund. And you saw labourers that should have benefited not even getting the same benefit because the government had diverted their resources to COVID efforts. The second thing is, Zaka, at the height of the lockdown when people were starving and dying and migrant labourers were stranded with nothing to eat, that is when you should have used your fund.
Yes.
That is when you should have given them the provision, not when you've eased up the lockdown, economic activity has begun. And just as a compensatory measure, you give them a little sum of money and say, oh, we're waiting for the worst to come. Zaka, I work in a rural constituency. Not one of my ASHA workers are equipped with even sanitizers and masks. The health infrastructure in rural areas is crumbling. Even with one case coming in, can debilitate the entire taluk at this point. You see that daily wage and migrant workers have gotten nothing, including
Mr. Prakash,
basically
Mr.
forced
Prakash,
to
respond
stay.
to that
Tell me
point.
what
I
the
think
government
it's
has
a
done.
valid point. When migrant labor was stuck in Bangalore, many of them were going hungry, many of them were walking by foot. That's when you should have used this money.
Probably she is not aware. In Karnataka, the government, Labour Department has distributed lakhs of ration kits to the various labourers and even poor families right from the day it was announced. It is not that not a single ration kit was distributed. It's incorrect. Let us not politicize the things. where the government has went out of the way and they have distributed everyday food, ration card, and these funds have been used by the labor unorganized sector fund reserved for it. Of course, that was meant for the laborers and they have been distributed to them.
Let me bring our viewers up to speed. Sir, one second, because what is worrying about the state of Karnataka is, remember, same time last month we did a show and we had the medical education minister, who is one of the leading frontline ministers in this battle against COVID in Karnataka, come to us, and there was a Karnataka model almost, how the cities in the state as well as the districts in the state were managing to fight this battle very well. Unfortunately, what's happened in the last few weeks, take a look at this, 6,245 cases as of today. 204 cases have been added in the last 24 hours. The number of recoveries is still lower than the number of active cases. There are more than 3,197 active cases. Recoveries is only at 2,976. 72 people have died. The mortality rate, yes, it's lower than the national average. National average is 2.8. Mortality rate in Karnataka is 1.2. So that's a good thing. But the recovery rate, national recovery rate average is 49.5% as of today. In Karnataka, it's only 47.7%. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you were to look at this same map about 10 days ago, 15 days ago, or over a month ago, you would not see these reds. Look at the northern districts. We'll start from, the district that's bordering Maharashtra as well as Andhra Pradesh. Bidar has almost 300 cases. You come one district south, that's Gulbarga, that has almost 800 cases. Then you have Yadgir, again, 735 cases. Yadgir, about a month and a half ago, almost had 0 cases. But look at the rate at which these northern districts, Belagavi is another district which has again tons of cases, 302 cases in Belagavi, which of course borders Maharashtra. The point I'm making is simply this: the other states, whether it is a Tamil Nadu or other bigger states, even in Maharashtra to a great extent, much of the cases are confined to the capital city. In Karnataka's case, a bulk of the cases are not in the capital. Bangalore only has 581 cases. The remaining cases out of the 6,000, so which means about 5,000 plus cases, are coming from other districts. So it's far more widespread in the state of Karnataka in terms of just geographic distribution than even in other states like Maharashtra or others. Let me just do a comparison map and give you a sense of where this is. We don't have the Karnataka map, but just compare this with the state of Maharashtra and you will see that a bulk of the red in Maharashtra is concentrated around Mumbai. The rest of the state is relatively better. Whereas in Karnataka, it's not Bangalore where the bulk of the cases are concentrated in. And I'll just round this off with, the case curve, and you can get a first-hand sense of just how things have changed for Karnataka. Take a look at the state of Karnataka. Here you go. This is the case curve for the last 30 days. And you can see there are 2 peaks. The first peak happens here, 22nd, 23rd of May, when the state was under 1,000 cases. You have a peak, but even then it's okay. It's still managed for about 10 days, goes all the way up to 2,000. And then on the 1st of June, when you go into unlock 1.0, and remember Karnataka was unlocking way faster than the national average. Look at this peak. From 2,000 cases on the 1st of June, it has gone up to a high of 3,259 cases. This was as of the 7th of June, the 8th of June, and then it's now stabilizing to 3,196 active cases. Point I'm making is very simple, that had this peak not happened, Karnataka would have been one of the states with a model example today to actually flout to the rest of the country and to the rest of the world on how to overcome COVID. Unfortunately, that's not been the case. And unfortunately, this money is lying unutilized. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much to both S. Prakash and to Aishwarya Mahadev. We'll see if the rest of this money is spent and how it is spent. But clearly, Karnataka has its plate full, no doubt about it, much like all other states across the country. Most other states, may I say, across the country. Let's now shift focus from this to another story that we're tracking. And this is an important one, too. Suddenly, this is a development that has really taken a lot of folks by surprise. At least one Indian farmer has been killed and 4 others injured after Nepal police opened fire at them at the border near Sitamarhi. This is in the northern part of Bihar, on the border with Bihar and Nepal. The deceased was tending to a farm when these shots were fired from the Nepal side of the border. Officials said that the locals had a confrontation with the police there over accessing an area close to the international border, and later a scuffle broke out between both sides, resulting in this firing. Now, I can't think of the last time ever that the Nepali police opened fire like this across the border between both countries. The police there have accused the farmers of trying to bring coronavirus into Nepal.
जानकी नगर गांव के श्रीलागन यादव हैं। उनकी एक बहू नेपाल की सिटीजन है। वो उस तरफ से आ रही थी और इधर से भी उनके परिवार के कुछ लोग थे, तो बिल्कुल नेपाल की सीमा के अंदर आपस में बातचीत कर रहे थे। तो उस बीच में नेपाल एपीएफ के गश्ती दल ने कहा कि नेपाल में 14 जून तक लॉकडाउन है, आप लोग जाएं यहाँ से। इस बीच में उनसे बहस हो गई। मोबाइल से उन लोगों ने फ़ोन कर दिया और बहुत सारे ग्रामीण उस जानकी नगर से आ गए। इस बीच में महिलाएं तो चली गई, लेकिन वो उनसे नेपाल एपीएफ के लोगों की झड़प हो गई। उसमें नेपाल एपीएफ के लोगों के द्वारा 15 राउंड फायरिंग की गई, जिसमें 10 राउंड तो उन्होंने, खुद उनका कहना है कि हवा में फायर की और स्थिति नहीं संभली, तो उन्होंने 5 राउंड फिर फायर किया, जो सामने निश्चित तौर पे एम था।
All right, now this is significant because this can't be seen as an incident in isolation. Just yesterday, the Nepal government cleared the House cleared the bill, the controversial amendment to the Constitution bill, the controversial amendment which includes 3 areas as part of Nepalese territory, a new map. And now you have this firing. I can't think of the last time, Maha Siddiqui, when Nepalese police opened fire on Indians. We had the blockade, the infamous blockade from 2015. But opening fire, even if it's a misunderstanding, we don't know what the facts of the case are, but even if it's a misunderstanding, I mean, the underlying factors are very, very visible for everyone to see. Even the cops locally who are involved in this firing were saying that the farmers were trying to come into Nepal to spread coronavirus. I mean, it's almost echoing what the Nepalese Prime Minister said yesterday, that 85% of the cases in Nepal are people who've come back from India.
Absolutely. And the shocking statement was made by the Nepalese Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, where he also suggested that the strain of coronavirus from India is much more virulent than the one from China and Italy. And therefore, that was at the time, Zaka, when already there was friction between India and Nepal over the issue of the new Nepalese map that has been issued by them, which includes 3 Indian territories of Limpiadhura, Kalapani and Lipu Lake. Interestingly and significantly, the final voting on this bill is going to take place tomorrow in Parliament. Clause by clause discussion will happen, a final discussion will take place, and then a voting. And at the same time, this unusual firing that has taken place in Sitamani at the border, which is extremely, unusual, as I was pointing out, considering that such an incident has never been seen in the past, really. And that too over locals walking around the border area. And as locals are pointing out, that this was an altercation that took place when they suggested that these people return to India because they are bringing in coronavirus to Nepal. So clearly all this is echoing now on the ground as well. And also what has been...
All right, we'll pull away. We're getting some breaking news. This is from Tamil Nadu, where the number of fresh cases that have been added in the last 24 hours, 1,982 new cases have been reported in Tamil Nadu. Out of that 1,900, 1,477, 1,477 cases have been recorded in Chennai alone. 18 deaths have been recorded in the state today. Purnima Murli has more details on this. Is this another new high, Purnima, for the state?
Well, this is the highest single day spike so far. 2 days ago, it was 1,927, and today it's 1,980 odd cases that's recorded, which is why the Tamil Nadu government says that Chennai alone and the 3 neighboring districts would continue to see a spike because they have identified containment zones, but they think that people should also continue to follow protocol to ensure that they help contain the spread of virus. They say that the next 1 month is going to be crucial for Chennai and the 3 neighboring districts, but yet another spike in Chennai and 3 neighboring districts.
We'll leave it at that. Thanks very much, Purnima Murli. So the The latest that we have, this is yesterday's figure, 38,716. Another 1977 has been added to this, out of which more than 1,400 have come from just Chennai alone. Take a look at, the bulk of the cases in Tamil Nadu are coming from these three districts. That's Chennai, Tiruvallur to the north, and Kanchipuram and Chengalpet to the south. So these 3 or 4 districts are contributing to a bulk of the cases. If you were to look at just Chennai alone, just take a look at the capital. Out of these 38,000 odd cases, 27,000, that's more than 2/3 of the cases, are coming from just that one city. Another 1,400 plus cases have been added in Chennai over the last 24 hours. So clearly, Tamil Nadu has a lot on its plate, and certainly the capital of Tamil Nadu has a lot on its plate. Chennai city now accounting for 27,000 plus cases. Just to give you a sense of the overall picture as far as India is concerned, this is on a day when we reached 2,97,000. For the first time, we've added 10,000 cases in 24 hours. Just to bring you that up to speed with the case curve. Look, all of these days since the Unlock 1.0 began, we were adding on average about 9,000 cases every single day. This is now going to be the new normal. 10,000 plus cases is what you're going to see from today into the next few weeks and days. What does it mean in terms of where India stands? India is currently now number 4 in the world. Only Russia, Brazil and the United States are above India at 2,97,000. But look at the rapid pace in which India has gone from number 10. That happened on the 24th of May, and that was not too long ago. That was just 15 days ago. From the 24th of May at number 10 position to now number 4 position that India is in right now, today on the 11th of June. What is the city-wise contribution? If you were to look at, which cities are contributing to this, Mumbai, for the first time, has now come down below the 19% mark. You have Chennai that's gone up of 9% mark. Delhi is again continuously rising to 11.7% now. Ahmedabad has come down to 5.3 as well. Just want to quickly run you through both Delhi and Mumbai. We'll start off with Mumbai, and we talked about this. Pay attention to this figure at the bottom. Mumbai is growing at a slower pace than comparable other cities, whether it's Chennai or Delhi. 2.7% yesterday, 3.1% the day before. Look at Delhi, and we'll go to our reporter story on Delhi. The number of cases that are being added in Delhi is, at least the average rate of cases per day, is almost twice that of Mumbai, even though the absolute figure is less. And that's why, if you were to take a look at the active cities curve for the 2 cities, in fact the top 5 cities, you can see that this gap between Mumbai and Delhi is fast closing in. This gap is widening out between Delhi and Chennai, and this gap is certainly widening out between Chennai and Ahmedabad. So clearly, Delhi does have its work cut out, and this comes on a day when the Supreme Court of India, no less than the top court of the country, pulled up the state government of Delhi as well as the central government. It's taken note of the crisis in the healthcare system and called the situation in the national capital horrendous, issuing notices to the chief secretaries of Delhi, Maharashtra, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu. The apex court has directed them to do more to ensure that patients and their families do not suffer. Taking particular note of the state of Delhi's hospitals, the Supreme Court said that the MHA guidelines were not being followed and the family of victims were not getting enough attention. A notice has also been sent to Delhi's LNJP hospital. The matter will be heard once again next Wednesday. And staying with the national capital, this is a CNN News 18 impact after we reported on how doctors who are putting their lives at risk fighting the pandemic have not been paid their salaries for at least 3 months now. Both the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court have taken cognizance of this matter. The Delhi High Court has ordered that the North MCD give interim salaries to the resident doctors in its 6 hospitals, which includes the Kasturba Gandhi Hospital and the Hindu Rao Hospital. The case will be taken up by the High Court once again on the 8th of July. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has directed the state government to do more for healthcare workers. We cannot have dissatisfied soldiers in this war against coronavirus. That's what the court said today. Doctors who had not been paid salary for 3 months in the national capital had warned of mass resignations. All right, let me go across live to Runjhun Sharma, who broke this story yesterday, and today there's been an impact, both the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court weighing in. Are the resident doctors now happy, Runjhun, at least reasonably satisfied that the Delhi High Court has ordered that at least interim salaries be paid to them?
This definitely comes as a sigh of relief for them, Zaka. They are partially satisfied. The thing is that all these doctors, and this is about 1,000 doctors in the national capital, the doctors from all these 4 hospitals that come under North MCD and 17 polyclinics. These doctors, Zaka, they have been struggling for over 3 months now. They've been running from pillar to post. They've approached the hospital authority, the MCD, and also the state government. Wherever they've gone, the only reply they've got is that our funds have dried up. We have no money to pay you. You're free to resign. You don't have to work. So of course, that is something that had really demotivated the doctors. Working in a time of pandemic is not easy. You don't meet your family for weeks. Every day that you go out to work, you're sort of risking your life. So now, of course, since both the High Court and the Supreme Court of India has taken a cognizance of the doctors not being paid for 3 months, the hope is that their salary is released as soon as possible. Zaka, it's been a really tough time for them even to run their mundane household expenses. They've not been able to do that because they've not been receiving their salary for 3 months. So it is a sigh of relief. Finally, they're happy that they'll be able to pay their home loans and go about their daily business.
All right, we'll leave it at that, Runjan Sharma. Many thanks for breaking that story as well as putting that into perspective for our viewers. Meanwhile, what is the situation worldwide? Right now, the world has gone past 7 million cases. The highest number, of course, comes from the United States of America, which has over 2 million cases. Joining me now is Dr. Dena Grayson. She's a viral pandemics expert and also a Democrat leader. I'm just putting that out in the mix. Thanks very much, Dr. Grayson, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. We've had 7 million cases world over. The United States has seen 2 million cases. Just when you thought, the economy is going to come back, it's going to unlock itself and so on and so forth, we're beginning to see a sharp increase in cases. Do you feel that this is perhaps the wrong time for the world to be unlocking because the fear of this pandemic and the real threat of this pandemic has not gone away yet?
Well, the world is a large place, and coronavirus is very likely seasonal, like influenza. Typically with respiratory viruses, you see a big increase in cases during the winter months. So that would be in the southern hemisphere, whereas the summer months, there tends to be a little bit more of a break. So I don't think that you can look at this as a global decision that one size fits all. And in fact, even here in the United States, we have areas like New York State, where the number of cases are decreasing. They've had extended periods of lockdown, and now they're setting up testing and tracing programs. Compare that to states like Texas and Arizona and other places where the lockdowns really were very short. They're really, now we're seeing those economies reopen, but unfortunately, we're also seeing cases really starting to spike again, really sort of what we're calling the second peak of the first wave.
Wave, okay.
I don't think that you can say overall for the world, maybe in certain parts of the world, sure, like Australia or New Zealand, where they've have very aggressive testing and tracing and quarantine programs where it's safe to reopen. But there's other parts of the world, India, many parts of the United States, and other places where, Brazil, where they haven't even locked down, and we've got cases soaring.
But tell me this, and this is not so much a medical question as it is a political question, because this is going to be the biggest story in the run-up to November's election in the United States, Mr. Trump's re-election, as it were. Given the way he's handled the coronavirus, given the way it's exposed some of his weaknesses, do you believe this will have a real impact on his re-election chances? This could actually cost him his re-election?
Well, I would like to think that the last 3.5 years of chaos should cost him the presidency. But the way elections work in the United States is we have this antiquated, what we call the electoral college system, which if it were by popular vote, Trump would not even be in the White House in the first place. He lost by 3 million votes. I think he's likely to lose in 2020 the popular vote by more votes. But it all comes down to state by state, how many states he wins. Polling right now indicates that Mr. Trump is down substantially to former Vice President Joe Biden. However, it's nearly 5 months from the November elections, which in politics is literally an eternity. So I just think it's too early to really tell.
Okay, a week is a long time. 5 months is an eternity. We'll leave it at that. Dr. Dana Grayson, thanks very much for joining us and putting that story into perspective. That's a wrap. On the other side is COVID in your city.